Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that one single family has been silently controlling what you drive, what you read, what you watch, even whether your country goes into recession. The black fades into an aerial shot of Italy glowing at night. City lights forming a web. The voice continues. Now imagine this family isn't famous, isn't in politics, doesn't give speeches, and yet they have more influence than most governments in Europe. The camera zooms in on a glowing map. Ferrari, Jeep, Maserati Chrysler logos flick onto the grid one by one. And here's the crazy part. This family has been controlling all of this. Not for 10 years, not for 50, but for over a century, without ever stepping into the spotlight. A slow, suspenseful beat drops. The narrator speaks with rising tension. You think the Rockefellers were powerful? You think the Rothschilds shaped history? Italy has a dynasty even bigger. One that quietly played every side of every war, every political shift, every national crisis, and always came out on top. Cut to a close-up of an old black and white photograph of the Agnelli family. They've shaped the cars you admire, the news you read, the sports you love, and the economy of an entire nation. And yet, most people in the world have never even heard their name. The music softens. Drone footage glides over Turin, Italy. To understand how they became this powerful, we have to go back to a moment when Italy was still poor, fragmented, searching for identity. A time when one man looked at a country with no roads and decided it needed cars. Scene shifts to reenacted shots of 1899. Old factories, workers, smoke, horse-drawn streets. Giovanni Agnelli was on Deborna Keen. He wasn't born a billionaire, but he had something far more dangerous: vision. While others argued about politics and tradition, Giovanni saw a future driven by machines. Old mechanical sounds fade in steam, gears turning. In a small workshop with just 35 workers, he helped build 24 cars a year. That tiny factory would become the monster we know today as Fiat, the engine that dragged Italy into the modern world. Cut to modern Fiat. Production lines, robotic arms, welding sparks, engines roaring, but behind every great rise, there's a scandal, and Giovanni faced his first one early. Courtroom flashes, news clippings, accusations. He was dragged into court for financial fraud, accused of cooking the books, inflating prices. Nothing was ever proven, but it left a mark. It taught him a brutal lesson. Power doesn't come from being honest. It comes from being 3 steps ahead. Scene transitions into darker tones. So, when World War I exploded across Europe, Giovanni didn't hesitate. He switched Fiat from cars to tanks, trucks, aircraft engines, whatever the Italian army needed. Business boomed. Money flooded in. Images of soldiers, factories running day and night, and criticism flooded in too. People accused him of war profiteering, but Giovanni had already learned how to survive. Choose the winning side, or the side that looks like it might win. A dramatic pause, and that's how Fiat became tied to one of the most controversial figures in European history. A shadow of Mussolini appears on screen. Grainy footage, tense music. Yes, Giovanni quietly funded Mussolini's rise, and Mussolini protected Fiat from legal trouble, from backlash, from collapse. It was a business deal, not an ideology. Cut to war footage, but when the winds of war shifted, Giovanni shifted too. He distanced himself from fascism, signaled support for the Allies, and survived the fall of the regime. That's the Agnelli method. Never fight the storm, bend with it. Post-war scenes, ruined streets, rebuilding, factories restarting. The government punished the family temporarily, but Italy needed Fiat to rebuild. So the doors reopened. The empire grew. And a new Agnelli rose to power, one who would become a global icon. Camera moves to glamorous 1960s footage, fashion, yachts, jets, Johnny Agnelli. Charismatic. Stylish. Ruthless. When he needed to be. He wasn't just a businessman, he became a symbol of modern Italy. Clips of him shaking hands with world leaders, racing Ferraris, stepping off private jets. Under Gianni, Fiat didn't just grow. It conquered Brazil, Argentina, Eastern Europe, and even the Soviet Union. Yes, during the Cold War, Johnny built a massive plant in Russia, capable of producing 500,000 cars a year. A low laugh from the narrator. When you care about profit, politics becomes just background noise. Cut to montage of Lamborghini, Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo, Fiat, absorbed legendary brands. 1 in 5 Italian workers depended on this one company. Towns lived or died based on Fiat's decisions. Cut to newsroom footage. And that S when Gianni realized something even more powerful. Controlling industry wasn't enough. Real power comes from controlling information. Images of newspapers, magazines, printing presses. So the family bought media companies, newspapers, and eventually one of the most influential magazines in the world. The Economists fade into Juventus Stadium roaring with fans. And of course, they took over Juventus. Not just a soccer team, but a cultural weapon. When you control emotion, you control loyalty. The music shifts to a cool, modern beat. And today, the empire is quieter, more subtle, more global. Led by John Elkann, the family's modern architect. They've moved their base to the Netherlands, expanded into tech, data, healthcare, finance, analytics, the real power sectors of the 21st century. Close-up of John Elkann in a boardroom. They sit in the meetings. Before the meetings, they influence policy. Before it becomes policy, they shape markets before the public even knows what's happening. The final lines slow down, voice steady, almost chilling. They are not politicians. They are not celebrities. They are not elected. They are inherited, permanent, untouchable. A quiet beat. So here's the real question. Who runs Europe? The governments you vote for? Or the dynasties you never see? Screen fades to black. Whispered final line. Disc is the Agnelli Empire.